education. By going in there, we're supporting it. We're doing this to ourselves to some extent. And I'm as guilty as anybody else of doing that. And I'm trying my hardest to wean myself off it. It's extremely addictive. It's right. It's hard. It's hard, right? So, what's wrong with Tesco? Well, I'll tell you, it's not so much what's wrong with Tesco. It's what disturbs me is that you're asking that. And I have to admit, you know, it was funny because I was outside McDonald's a while ago, sort of making some fun about McDonald's. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. What do you think's wrong with Tesco?
What's wrong with Tesco?
What do you think?
Maybe when a company becomes so big.
Yeah.
And it can be slightly abusive in some of its...
Slightly abusive?
In some of its actions.
In some of its actions.
But it also employs thousands...
Oh, yes, of course. Of course it does. Thousands of slaves.
Oh, yes.
In fact, some of the stuff... Yeah. It's okay. As long as it employs thousands of people, let's allow them to cheat us and to use all sorts of very clever marketing techniques full of deception.
If I go across the street to an independent shop, okay, where there's people on minimum wage, they're not slaves, are they? They're completely got their minds open.
Okay, all right.
Tesco people.
Okay, fair enough, it's a good point. Okay, so his point is, if you go to an independent shop where people are on minimum wage, what's the difference? Okay, well, my response to that question is that I think you'll find that if you look hard enough, I think you'll find that there are some independent shops that actually treat their staff well. And if we were to cut down on what we consume,
and there are some
hold on a second.
Really,
there are some good multiples that treat, like who?
Yeah.
Which multiples treat their people well? The people at the bottom. Goldman Sachs. Okay.
There's a publication. It's printed every year with the top, I think, 100, 250 best companies to work for.
Right.
All of them are big companies. Okay, and they're
really. And who decides what it means best to work for? Are they bringing out? Tell me something. You go into Starbucks and you see a beautiful human being serving in front of Starbucks, and ask yourself, is this human being operating at what percentage of this human being's potential is this human being operating as they just do their laborious task, filling your coffee up with 2 shots? As a little hint as to what coffee actually is.
Isn't the actual point to your anti-globalisation, anti-capitalist rhetoric? Isn't the point that small businesses and independent businesses are vital to the economy? They employ more people, okay, than big companies, okay? So we've got a strong independent sector anyway. But it's just that big companies, okay, are actually better at what they do, which is making money.
Okay, so big companies are better at what they do, which is making money. The only problem is with large corporations. The only problem with large corporations are that they're basically fictional entities. A corporation is a fictional entity that's given as if they're regarded as human beings. And so you've got a situation where you've got for example, I was in Brighton 2 days ago, and I was doing this in the middle of the town centre, and I was told after a few minutes, some guy comes up to me and says, "You can't do this." I said, "Why not?" He says, "This is private property." Who's it owned by? Standard Life. So you've got a massive insurance company controlling areas in the centre of cities, okay? Now these insurance companies don't have a conscience. They can't have a conscience because they're legal fictions. All they have is people working for them, and people that control them are basically likely to be psychopaths who are addicted to money and power. Now, if anybody knows what addiction does to a person, right, why don't you speak to an alcoholic or a drug addict who's perhaps got off their addictions and ask them what their behaviour was like before they were off their addiction. Ask a drug addict what they would be prepared to do to feed their addiction, and that's the same behaviour that the people that are running these corporations are behaving. They're just very clever at hiding it. I used to be in cahoots with somebody who I would now describe as a psychopath. I didn't know that until a few months after I met him.
Are we cursing all entrepreneurs?
No, I'm not cursing all entrepreneurs. No, I'm not. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not cursing all entrepreneurs, right? I'm asking questions about large corporations and the idea that the corporation is treated like a human being in some senses, and in other senses, the human beings that work for these corporations get away with everything, including stealing and murder.
Where do you stand on a very large organisation then called John Lewis?
And the people at the bottom. What is that percentage? What is that percentage?
It's about 20 times more.
It's about 20 times more, okay. Well, firstly, I think you'll find that John Lewis is an exception to the rule. Secondly, 20 times more is rather a lot to me, especially if you're the one that's only getting the 10 grand a year or whatever it is.
Ah, right, okay, right. So you're the one who deems the value of somebody's skills and, you know, what they bring to the table.
I'm not the one that deems the value for anything.
Well, because you're saying 20 times is not acceptable.
I'm not saying 20 times is not acceptable. I'm just questioning it. That's all. I'm questioning it, and I also think what you're doing here is just basically bringing this conversation to a place that I'm not interested in having, because it's kind of sidetracking. John Lewis is an exception to the rule. Perhaps it's a good exception to the rule, but it's an exception. The rest of the corporations don't work like that. The rest of the corporations don't work like that. It isn't. Yeah, you're right, and that's problematic as well. Where do they get their goods from? Where do they get their goods from? Yeah, which suppliers? Where are the suppliers? No. Well, there you go.
I'm sure
they get their suppliers from the suppliers that make Nike, etc., and all these things that are made by child slaves in China, right? I mean, the thing about this is, as I said, I'm not here to change your mind. Yeah, I don't even know what you think about things, and I don't have enough confidence in my own opinions, because I know that my opinions have been put into my beautiful mind by all these major corporations. All this. Look at the woman. This is it. If you want to understand how mind control works, just look at this woman. What's she doing there? She's acting, and it's a news show.
She's doing a job. She's doing a job. Right?
She's doing a job. That's right. I know she's doing a job. I know that. I wonder what she'd say if she could say anything she likes. I wonder if it'll be any different than what she's actually saying.
No, you asked the question, what is she actually doing? Let me explain to you what that lady is doing.
Okay, what's she doing? Why don't you use the megaphone?
I'll use the megaphone if you really want to.
What that lady over there is doing is basically
he does hate it.
Yeah, I mean, there's
It's a laugh.
and she's kind of creating this false illusion about what's gone on here today. How many people have stood out here today watching this event? A few thousand people. How many people will actually see this event across the world? Millions of people. And how do they get their view on what actually happened here today? Somebody's got to give them that story. News doesn't happen, as much as you'd like to believe in your little fantasy world. News doesn't happen. News has to be created.
You don't think it's going to be edited? Big time.
Of course I think it's going to be
And see, ladies and gentlemen, this is absolutely beautiful, you see. I mean, I couldn't have put it, but I just want to say, I could not have put that better myself. I don't know, people are probably going to be thinking I paid you, or you're kind of some, I don't know what, but you see, I don't really have much to add to you, because what's so interesting, by the way, you're stating the obvious. You know, one of the things that I like to do in my house, it doesn't go down so well, is to film. I like to film myself, because it's the funny thing about the human condition, or my experience of it is, that I don't know what I actually sound like, or what